You're listening to the Actors Resource with Alice Kwan, a podcast for actors and improvisers, with interviews from entertainment industry experts.
Ben Weddell is a TV and podcast host from Chico, California. He has a background in improvisational comedy and sketch writing. He started doing local improv comedy shows before moving on to TV with his first show, Aberrant Behaviors. After that, he studied at Synergy Theater in the Bay Area before returning to Chico, where he launched Big Ben's movie show and the Geek Wars podcast network. Welcome, Ben Weddell! Ben, can you, tell us, how you got started with improv and sketch writing?
Okay. Well, acting came early. Been doing little plays and stuff since I was a kid. Did a version of Charlie and the Chocolate Factory when I think I was 12, where they actually had to write extra parts for all of us.
Cute.
You know that thing where you do community theater, and when you're a kid, you have to pay for it? My kid actually is doing this right now, actually. And,
yes.
Yeah. So when you're a kid, you have to pay to be in a play. You have to
yes.
them. And of course, you're paying to be in the play. They can't say, "Oh, I'm sorry, there's no more roles." They need that money. So
right.
If you're going to do Charlie the Chocolate Factory and you run out of roles, what do? You just add roles. So I was given the part of Charlie's dad. And not until years later did I realize that me playing Charlie's dad actually ruins the motivation of the character Charlie quite a bit, because part of why Charlie is interesting is that he's in a home that struggles because he has one parent and she has to pay the bills for everybody. And so when you add a dad in there, you're like, oh, that changes their situation in a way that kind of ruins the play. So yes, I ruined a play that I was in that I didn't even know that I ruined. It was a fun little gig. But I'd been doing plays like that since I was a kid. And then when I got older, actually this is I was 27. I went back to college.
Mm-hmm.
And at this point I'd done little bits of improv here and there. I'd done improv games at theater camps and stuff like that.
Mm-hmm.
And I tried sketch writing. I was a big fan of SNL as a kid.
Yeah.
And so I knew about sketches, and I'd tried writing. In fact, actually, one of the ones that we ended up doing in my sketch group, Aberrant Behaviors, was one that I wrote when I first moved back to California. I lived in Seattle for about 5 years. And when I moved back to California, I was about 25. I was 25. I wrote a sketch. I sent it to a friend who eventually would be one of the writers for my sketch group. And he was like, yeah, this is cool, but we just couldn't get our act together enough to go shoot it or do anything with it, which that's a big deal, actually. Getting your act together enough to actually go and organize something, I discovered later, is the ultimate key to doing anything.
Okay.
Is actually the most important skill or talent you could have, is the ambition and the drive to actually go and get a group of people together and organize things and actually make it happen. It's without that, nothing happens. Yeah. It's and now I've been in enough stuff where if I'm involved, it moves, and if I'm not, it dies.
Wow.
That I now understand how ridiculously powerful that is, and especially now that I work with other, I call these people makers. These are the people that actually make stuff and get stuff done.
Mm-hmm.
And now that I work with and know a couple makers here in town, and we kind of we'll all be in our own little spheres making stuff, and every now and then we'll get together and do like a little Avengers team up type thing stuff together. But like I mentioned, my other friend who has a podcast, and the other guys who work at the TV station with me.
Yeah. Oh, can you say what TV station you're talking about and who your friends are?
Sure. Yeah. So my friends at the other podcast is Chris Smith, who does the Dorking Out podcast, and then.
And you have a podcast,
I have a
right?
podcast. Yeah, it's called Die Hard on a Blank, where we review action movies that fit the Die Hard mold but are not actually Die Hard movies. So
yes,
like Air Force One is Die Hard on a plane and stuff like that. So I do that podcast, and then the other maker at the TV station with me is Skylar Sabine, and he's like a professional filmmaker. Like he actually came from Hollywood. He worked on actual movies that have been seen by actual people, like Chronicle,
cool,
and other things like that.
Yes,
that, he did audio effects, he did shooting, he did editing. Mm-hmm. So he's actually ridiculously skilled. But yeah, he's a kid from right here in my hometown that he's a little bit older than me, but he went down to LA and made a little career out of it, and then decided that he wanted to come back to his hometown and really try to make an industry here.
Nice.
So that's what we do at the TV station together, is try to make projects that we can actually make here in Chico, but that we can actually try to make a living off what we love doing, but from this tiny little town in Northern California.
Yes.
So.
And what is the TV show or TV station that you're currently mostly on right now?
Yeah, currently I work at a TV station called BCAC, which is Butte County Arts and Culture, and that's the local public access station here in Chico, California. And then, we broadcast to like 3 different counties up here, and then we have a sister station up in Redding, and I'm on TV up there. And then I have an agreement with a TV station in Berkeley to be on there, but I don't know actually if they air my show or not. I send it to them. So, yeah.
Okay, we'll assume that they air it.
Sure, yeah. That's the assumption. But yeah, so it's that's been kind of a cool little niche to get into. I started as a volunteer there, and now I actually work for the station.
And what do you do exactly for the station?
So for the station, I'm in charge of the schedule and the content curation. Basically, when shows are presented to us or somebody comes to us and says, I'd like to see this, I try to get that on the air. The videos that we make in-house, which are usually local events that we go shoot and then create packages for, I air those. The shows that we produce in-house, like my Big Ben's Movie Show, and the other show I produced, The Rainbow Review, which is an LGBTQ news show, I air those. And then we also are we're always out there scouring, looking for new content, new stuff that we can add to the station. So,
do you ever add stuff that is like non-realistic? Like, do you ever do like sketch shows or just, like?
We try. Yeah, we have a pretty thriving stand-up community here in Chico. And one of them decided to do a sketch show where it would just be him and all of his stand-up buddies, and they would kind of show up with sketch ideas and just do them in front of a green screen.
And the TV show company would just record it?
Yeah. So we have a studio, and so we...
Studio, that's the word. Studio. Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
So we shot it there in our studio with all of our equipment, and then the comedians decided to try to edit it.
Yeah.
And this is where the problem is, where the difference between makers and people that just have ideas is that... So a maker would actually see it through and follow it all the way to the end and make a show.
Yes.
And then keep making more shows.
Yes.
People that just have ideas do the part that they like doing.
Oh.
Which is, they like performing, they like writing. So he would come in and do more shows, but he would never edit them. So then, So we have one. We edited one for him.
Okay.
And so that's out there. It's called NSFW.
Uh-huh.
You can find it on YouTube. It's not bad. It's got a couple bits that are pretty funny.
Yeah.
And it was a bunch of little sketches, and then they did this little panel discussion with a couple, local comedians that are really funny. Originally the show idea was great. It's a bunch of really great, funny people getting together and doing funny stuff. Mm-hmm. But it ends up dying because of a lack of somebody who's willing to do the boring work, the sitting in the chair, for 10 hours going, what if he said it faster and actually editing it and making it right? That's the part where it always falls down. And it's happened to me too. I had a sketch show years ago. We ended up doing 6 episodes of it.
Nice. Where
I didn't shoot it and I didn't edit it. I had somebody else do that as part of the group. And then when he moved away, the show died. We tried to do stuff without him, and ultimately it was just too hard.
Yeah.
It was, we all worked too slow. We didn't have the patience to edit. I didn't have the patience to edit back then. Nowadays I could probably pull it off, but yeah, back then I didn't know what I was doing. So.
Right. Well, that's great. That's actually really, really relevant, because I was thinking in terms of as an actor, right? There's been a lot of talk about creating your own content, putting it on YouTube, making shorts or independent films or, and it sounds like a lot of times the big takeaway from what you're saying is to follow through and actually complete the project. And who knows, right? There could be a zillion reasons why it doesn't get completed.
Oh, tons, yeah. So it's and you're absolutely right in terms of creating your own content, especially for people working or who want to work in comedy. That now has become the standard.
Is that right?
If you want to be somebody,
what do you mean?
If you want to be somebody who works in comedy in the industry, you're going to have to be able to write. You're going to have to be able to eventually produce.
Wow.
It's it's just a thing. The idea that you can just show up and be like, oh, I'm an actor, I'm funny.
Yeah.
Great. I found a pretty person though, and we're going to go ahead and go with them. So that ends up being the hardest thing. So if you're showing up to the party with only one arrow in your quiver, they usually end up going with other people. Whereas if you're making your own stuff, that ultimately is, especially in the world of YouTube, in the world of all the prosumer products out there now, where you can get a decent camera for, $1,000. I mean, I found DSLR cameras online the other day for $250. $250, and you can buy a camera that actually shoots actual 1080p video. And there's tutorials on how to do lighting, and I mean, you really can, with very little money and just an amount of time and effort, teach yourself how to do this, teach yourself how to do it well, and go out and make decent stuff.
Nice. And then post it on YouTube.
And post it on YouTube and Vimeo and all those places.
Yeah.
You just got to have that drive. That's right. At the end of the day, that is the biggest thing. We actually had a lady just recently, this just happened, within the last 3 months. She came into the station 2 months ago just to visit. She was a friend of my buddy's. She came in to visit, and she was like, oh my gosh, this is so great. You got all this cool equipment. I really want to do a show. And we're like, okay, yeah, you want to do a show? Cool.
Yeah.
We'll schedule a time. You come in, and we'll shoot something. And she goes, great. And she shows up on the day of, and she goes, okay, what are we doing? We're like, I don't know. It's your show.
Yeah.
She's like, well, I kind of want to do this. And so we end up kind of inventing some stuff for her.
Yeah.
And she does that. And then she comes back, and we're like, okay, yeah. And then she keeps wanting to hand it off to us and then leave.
Yeah. And
then show up, and we'll have it finished. And we keep saying, like, well, no, we have our own projects. So, like, I can, I'll teach you how to edit a little bit, but then you got to handle this thing. You got to do it.
Right.
And it's just becoming painfully clear that that's never going to happen. So yeah, she was coming in fairly 2 or 3 times a week.
Yeah.
And about a week ago, it all just dried up, and I haven't seen her.
Oh, that is great to know. Like, yeah.
And it's just that thing of, like, she was super passionate about it for like a month.
Sure. Yeah.
And then when she realized that there was going to be, oh wait, I'm actually going to have to sit down and do stuff that I'm going to have to learn how to do new stuff.
Yes.
And then also the other thing that she found out was she's not as funny as she thinks she is.
Oh no.
that was a bummer for her.
Oh no.
Where she kept saying, like, oh, I want to do funny stuff. And then she would say her funny idea and no one would laugh.
Yeah.
And here's the rule of thumb when it comes to comedy stuff. If you say it to the room full of people and you pitch it and it's not funny to anybody, chances are
it's not it's not funny.
So yeah, it's one thing if, like, somebody smiles, or if it's like, oh, it's not haha funny, it's like, oh, that's something to think about funny.
Yes.
Nope. If it's just, okay, that sounds all right. That's not funny.
Yeah.
Don't do that. Yeah. She had all these, like, what if my hair was like going up for, like, no reason? All right. Yeah. I don't know. And I'm like, and maybe it's the problem was we're a room full of guys and we just don't get it. But I'd like to think that no, someone's hair just going up for no reason isn't funny enough to actually shoot something about it.
Yeah.
Gotta have a little more than that. Yeah, it was. I don't know. It was an interesting idea. She's a talented young lady, but she kept wanting to get away from where we saw her talent.
Which was what? Where did you see her talent?
Her talent was in talking about the stuff that she was actually passionate about. What the stuff that she had been passionate about her whole life was, she was a holistic health professional. She was all about that sort of thing and doing, personal growth and personal enrichment through positive thinking and therapy and things like that. That to me was where the show should have been going. Where, it should have been about her, and she did some of that. She talked about her experiences and how to overcome things. That's all great, and we needed more of that. And just at the end of the day, it seemed like she wasn't in love with that idea. But this is another big part of it. This is a big part of it for actors and anybody. Be honest, brutally honest about what you're good at, about what you're not good at. Okay, and that's the big thing. So being honest about what you're good at doesn't mean you're arrogant.
Right.
It means so it doesn't, and you don't want to do the false humility thing either. I was in therapy years ago, and somebody I was talking to a therapist, and we were talking about my job, and I said, "Oh, I want to be paid to be funny." And he goes, "Ben, are you really funny?" And I stopped for a second, I thought, and I went with the humble answer, and I was like, "Oh, I can be kind of funny." And he goes, "Stop right there." He goes, "You wouldn't actually be trying to get a career in this if you weren't really funny." And he goes, "Ben, do you think Peyton Manning thinks he's an okay quarterback?" I said, "No." And he goes, "No, if you're good at it, know it, own it. But, but at the same time, know your weaknesses too." So that's a huge big thing. Really
so good.
Knowing
that's so good.
What you're good at, knowing where you're weak at.
Yeah.
And being open and honest to admitting where you're weak at so that you can, because you can't get better at it until you admit you're not good at it.
Right. I just want to acknowledge that is huge, at least for the humble or the false humility. Because there's that dichotomy of, I want to say I'm good for some people, right? Like, I want to say I'm good, but then I don't want to come across as cocky or boastful.
Yeah.
But I think your therapist and what you said is just really impactful, because you have to have the worthiness of knowing what you are good at. Because if you don't trust yourself or believe in yourself about that aspect, who's going to trust and believe in you?
Exactly.
Right. But then also being, cool with knowing, hey, I'm not good at everything and open to learning. Or what do you think about if you have an area that you're weak at, let's say, writing? What do you think about partnering with somebody who is good at that?
Absolutely. That was that first sketch show I did. And I didn't know it at the time, but turns out shooting and editing at the time, I was very weak at. And thank God I had a partner that was strong in those areas, and he could handle that. And then now when I came to this station, I was still weak at those things. I had never developed it. And thank God I had somebody who could teach me how to do those things.
Nice.
So it's, whereas I've learned to be a better shooter, I've learned to be a better editor, to the point where now I'm handling projects on my own. But it took months and months of, sitting next to somebody who was good at it. And, it's the steps of learning where first it's you watching them, then it's them watching you, then it's you do it yourself, and they'll come and check your work later. So and that's honestly how you eventually get good at it. It was a whole lot of that, and it was a lot of trial and error. A lot of like me showing up and being like, I have this thing and I think it's good, and he would look at me and smile and he goes, do you really think it's good? and it's super humbling, and like, I think so. It's not. It's really, and you're like, oh, okay.
Oh.
And it's just a thing. Oh, the other gentleman I mentioned, Chris Smith.
Yeah.
He also does video work on the side. He actually employed me this last year. We went and shot a thing in the Bay Area.
Nice.
It was for a drunk driving special called Every 15 Minutes.
Whoa.
And the reason that he employed me is he's doing something in real time where he has to have 3 different camera people at 3 different locations.
Ooh. So kind of like Sense8.
Yeah.
The Netflix show.
Yes. Very similar. I know a guy that worked on that too.
Ooh.
Actually, I think
I love that show. What's that? Who?
Jeff Mosley.
Yes. Oh my God, I should have Jeff on.
You really should. Jeff's great.
Okay, I will.
So the thing was, I had to be in a hospital, and actually this was down in Castro Valley. So I was down at a hospital down there. He was at a high school, and there was another camera person at a different hospital. And so the rec starts at the high school, and he's there shooting that.
Whoa.
And then 2 kids get taken away in ambulances. 1 kid gets taken away in a helicopter. So I'm at the hospital waiting for the helicopter. The other person's at the hospital waiting for the ambulances. We shoot the whole thing, and then we go into a little hotel room for an afternoon, and we edit it, and it has to be done that day.
Oh my God.
Yeah. So it's sometimes you're there till 2 a.m. Sometimes we ended up lucking out. I got to leave at I think 8:30. So yeah, and I finished and drove home same day.
Jeez.
So it's a pretty intense exercise. So, but yeah, and my first edit, I do my edit, I go to show it to him, and as he's looking at it, he starts immediately just throwing shots out. And I was like, and he goes, oh, hey, I'm so sorry. And I was like, no, I need this. Good. Show me which shots that I'm getting are crap, and show me which shots that I'm getting aren't crap. And yeah, and it ended up, I was making it too fancy, and we ended up cleaning it up, and it was fine. But yeah, and this is, he's an Emmy winner. That's how he wins Emmys, is with these Every 15 Minutes videos.
Jeez, wow.
3 of them so far.
Oh my God, that's so cool. Oh, that's so cool.
Yeah.
I want to touch his Emmy.
they're real size. So it's a regional Emmy.
Okay.
They actually do it. It's the ceremony's down in San Francisco, actually. But yeah, it's a regional Emmy, but it's full sized, and it's just as big as a real Emmy. And yeah, no, I've held it. It's pretty cool.
Yeah,
it's fun.
Oh my God, that's awesome.
Yeah.
But how do you communicate? Like, how do you guys communicate if you're all shooting in 3 different locations? Are you shooting at the same time?
No, so he's shooting, and then as soon as he's done, they're already en route to me.
Okay, gotcha.
So he'll be there, and then I get a phone call that says, "Hey, they just left. I'm wrapping up here. I'll meet you back at the hotel."
Okay.
And that lets me know that I'm on.
Okay.
I need to get out to the helipad right away.
Yeah.
And yeah, as soon as I get out to the helipad, here comes the helicopter, and I'm on.
Okay.
And I'm shooting all that, and I'm getting the shots that I think I need to get. It was my first time doing it, so it was hard. Meanwhile, the other young lady, it was her second or third one that she had done. So she actually got to go home at like 2:00. So she knew exactly what she was doing.
Yeah.
She got in there and she goes, cut. Here's your scene. Bye. And I was like, what the hell?
Wow.
I was there for another 6 hours.
Yeah.
But to her credit, once I actually figured out what we were doing,
yes,
like it took me 6 hours to do my first cut, and then that cut was almost completely thrown out. And then it took me about an hour and a half just to do my second cut, and that's the one that got in.
Nice.
So
you're a fast learner.
Yeah, that's more than anything, that's being adaptable and being able to learn is the thing that will make it. That's what makes you bulletproof. More than, talent is great and talent is cool, but being able to learn, being able to grow, being able to change, and not being a butthole. Those, being somebody that people want to work with.
Yeah.
At the end of the day is way more valuable than, there's a lot of people that are talent and it's great, but usually talent ends up being a double-edged sword of, you've got talent, but you also have, there's almost always headaches with talent. So if you can be this person that has talent and doesn't create headaches, you win every time.
Nice. Oh, so much good stuff, Ben. Oh my God, this is amazing. At least 3 great takeaways, about having talent and not being a headache. And then that person tends to win. Yeah.
That works with acting, that works with writing, that works with my old improv group, my original improv group. We were all actors and writers. Except for, I think we had one person that was just a writer. But most of us were actors and writers, and one of the guys had a very inflated opinion of himself. He would be in there and he would be talking about how everybody in LA passed him over and they were all crazy because he was a genius and all this stuff, and why didn't all of his sketches get on? And he did have some talent. He had some talent. But in a room like that where everybody's got some talent, and I've got these 3 people over here that aren't headaches, and I've got this guy who is a headache. Later on in my life, I was offered a chance to write a movie. And when I thought about who I wanted to help me with writing the movie, I did not reach out to that person.
Because he was a headache.
Because he was a headache. I mean, that's exactly the kind of after effects that kind of stuff has. Is that if you're a joy to work with, years later, even though the guy's talented, he's a funny writer, but at the same time, I know other people that are also funny writers who aren't in the ass to work with. So, I'm obviously going to want to go work with them. That person, he knew that I got the gig. Because we're all friends. Yeah. So he saw me talking to the other 2 gentlemen and working with him, and it was very obvious what was going on, and he felt left out, but at the same time, and the hard part about that is when people have struggles with that, but then don't know why, and that goes back to that thing of knowing your strengths, knowing your weaknesses. Yeah.
Oh my God, that's great.
If he had really understood himself, he would have realized, oh, I'm kind of a headache. I'm kind of a pain in the ass.
Right.
And
what did he do that, if it's okay to say, what did he do? Sure. Some examples of what, in your opinion, is a headache or a pain,
The big headache of it all is, so, when you're doing work and you're putting stuff out there, if there's any, always be willing to take notes. Always be willing to take notes.
Just be open.
Because here's the thing. You can take notes and not make changes. All right, so I write for a sketch group in LA, and I'll send stuff down there, and I'll get notes, and I'll get notes from 30 people. Whew. Like of the 30 people, there's 25 notes that are completely crap. But I read every single one of those notes, and I absolutely read all of them, and I thank the person who gave them to me, and then I just don't listen to all of them, but I absolutely read them. And I just go, okay, well, they obviously didn't get it, and so but you take the notes, you absolutely do. So at the end of the day, you can hear it and not have to change it, and but always be willing to listen, always be willing to talk, always be willing to, and I don't tell any of them, that's a dumb note, you're stupid for giving me that note, please leave,
Right.
Nothing like that happens. I just go, okay, all right, interesting thought, thank you.
Yes.
You move along, you're polite, you take it, and then you decide whether or not you actually want to change it.
Right. If it's a right call for you, but you take in the note, you listen, you consider it, you thank them, and then you think about, is this a note that I would like to incorporate? Will it actually, be the right thing for this particular project or piece?
Exactly.
Yeah.
But always be willing to listen, always be willing to work with other people.
Yeah.
When you're giving notes to other people, be constructive, but don't be hurtful. This was another thing that he did sometimes, where he would give notes that were just rough.
Ouch.
So,
yeah.
And I'm no saint either. I'm guilty of doing, I had one writer submit a sketch where none of the jokes worked.
Yeah.
None of the jokes worked at all. And I went back through and I rewrote it.
Yeah.
And changed all the jokes, kept the sketch exactly the same, but changed all the punchlines so that they worked. And then without even talking to the author, the original author,
Oops.
I emailed everybody in the group both copies.
Oops.
And said, let's vote on which one's funnier.
Well, you learned.
So yeah, because in my mind, though, it was survival of the funniest. And that's not admirable way of doing it, but it was rude. It was a rude way to do it. I should have gone to the person first and said, hey, I think this, I should have told the person what the problem with the jokes was first.
Which is hard to do.
Which is hard to do, but given him a chance to fix it. And then if he pushed back on it, that's when then you involve other people and maybe do that. But and that person actually ended up, they left the group over this. And the hard thing was, it was the boyfriend of another guy that was in the group, and we actually, he's one of my best friends. We travel together, and the next year when it was time to travel together, he actually canceled the trip.
Oh no!
And it took 6 months to figure out what was going on, and then finally, I was like, okay, well, let's go talk about this, and we went and talked about it and hashed it out. But
nice.
Things like that can hang on forever.
Yeah, and it's so great that you took the time, because it's hard to communicate, especially with confrontation. And especially when you don't know what's going on. So that was, just want to acknowledge you for hashing it out and working it out and being open to understanding and then incorporating it in the future.
I had to sit there and listen to that person's critiques of me. Which got a little rough. So and I'll tell you right now, most of their critiques of me, other than that one situation where I was rude, were off base. That person took that one situation and kind of expanded it out to being my whole life.
Sure.
Oh, well, you seem like a control freak and you never let anybody do anything. And I was like, okay, I can see where you might think that because of that thing that happened.
Right.
But you can go talk to everybody else in the group and find out that no, that's actually not the case. And that,
right.
Yeah.
And that happens too, right? I've done it, oh, you lied to me about my butt not being big. Well, you lied to me about everything. You're cheating on me. When it's really, just a white lie. Yeah.
No. Yeah.
Anyways, I'm noticing the time and I'm thinking, do you need to get going?
I do.
Okay, cool. So do you have anything can you name your TV show so that people can get a hold of you? Sure. And also a sketch that you wrote that is on Funny and Die. Which one is that? So people can look it up and follow up with you.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. So I've got some sketches and stuff out there. They're all pretty amateurishly made. But the one that I'm probably the most proud of, and actually it's the one that I wrote before we even started the group, but that we ended up shooting later, is called Self-Esteem Workout. And I won't spoil the joke, but it's about a person that is trying to exercise their self-esteem.
Nice. So
build themselves up to face the brunt of the world and then cope.
Yes.
So yeah, you can check that out. That's on Aberrant Behaviors. Aberrant Behaviors on YouTube. Actually, a lot of therapists have actually picked it up and put it on different playlists and stuff.
Nice.
Which I'm kind of proud of. I like that.
Yeah.
Yeah. So that's out there. My show is Big Ben's Movie Show. That's my TV show where I talk about movie news in Hollywood, and I always review whatever the newest movie is that came out that week.
Nice.
Which I'm currently on hiatus on that, but that's coming back in about 2 weeks. We're going to start doing that regularly again.
Sweet. It's coming back in 2 weeks. Awesome.
You can check out my podcast. It's Die Hard on a Blank. To find that, though, you got to go to the Geek Wars Podcast Network. That's actually where all my podcasts are. So Geek Wars, like Star Wars, but with the word geek.
Nice.
Yeah. I have Twitter and stuff, but I don't use it a lot. But it's they're out there. You can. It's at Geek Wars Podcast is probably the best one.
Great.
So,
at Geek Wars Podcast is a Twitter handle for you.
Is a Twitter handle.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's probably the best one. I don't check any of them regularly. I'm 35. I don't tweet a lot. Yeah. So, but yeah.
Oh, this is so super cool. Thank you so much, Ben. You were amazing.
Oh, thanks for having me on. It's been fun.
And thank you so much for listening to the Actors Resource Podcast. Please shoot me an email if you have feedback or if you have a specific subject that you have questions or would like answers to. You can email me at holla@alicekwongactor.com. Bye!